Welcome back to Speaking with Elvis podcast, the podcast of communication and mindset. In this episode, we are going to center on the body language that speaks before you even do. So, your body language that speaks before you even do. So now I'm going to recap what we shared last episode. And episode, we talked about from nervous to natural, how to overcome speaking anxiety. And I shared that it was simply a matter of practicing long enough that your body knows it better than your mind. So you going from nervous to natural, you just have to do it so many times, practice it so many times that your body knows it better than your mind. Just like anything that becomes natural is from repetition. So when it comes to going from nervous to natural, we just have to do it so many times. When it comes to public speaking, practice speaking so many times that at one point your body takes it over your mind. So whenever you are actually speaking somewhere, you don't even have to think about it. You don't even have to think about what you're going to say. And because sometimes when you think about what you're going to say and how you're going to say it, that's when nervousness, comes in. So when you practice it enough, whether it is the message itself or maybe the techniques of delivering that message, when you practice it long enough, you go from nervous to natural. And I share also another technique that I learned from Mel Robin, the 5-second rule, how you can overcome anxiety when it comes to public speaking. And I share the 5-second rule is simply by counting 5 to 1. And the reason is simply because when we are anxious about speaking in public, it's simply because we are thinking that people are going to judge us. It's a thought that is going through our mind, right? So we're thinking that we might lose our train of thought. And when we do that, people are going to judge us. But when we do the technique of the 5-second rule technique, we count from 5 to 0, and then we switch that thought. Instead of thinking about the judgment, we think about the empowerment, that what we're going to share is going to empower that one person in the audience, that other person in the audience. Now it changes from anxiety now to kind of excitement, because you're excited to see how impact that would have on that one person in the audience. Now, this particular episode, we are going to center on one aspect of communication that is fundamental. And I say that fundamental because it amounts for a greater percentage of good communication. No, let me go back again in time. I like to go back in time. Body language predated language, which means people used to, I'm talking about, I don't know, could be millions of years, right? People used to communicate with gestures even before people started speaking. So body language predated language. Language only evolved after the fact, but people were communicating before. Our ancestors used to communicate with gestures before the language, they stopped developing language. So which means body language has always been with us ever since. That's why body language is crucially important in any aspect of communication. So you see, communication is simply this. There was a study conducted in the 1960s, I think, by Albert. I forgot his last name. It was a study conducted at that period of time in the 1960s, and they realized, they discovered that great communication amount only for 7% for your message. The message, the content that you are sharing, it's only 7%. 38%, it's your voice. It's how you use your voice. Now, 55%, it's your body language. It's how you use your body. Because oftentimes, your body speaks louder than you do. By just using your body, you can make a point bigger or smaller than the actual word that you are saying. And that's the reason why, if you see some of the interrogation techniques from FBI or great interrogators in the world, they're not looking at what the suspect is saying. It's not the word that they're fishing. It's not asking them to admit to their fault, and many would not. But they are actually looking at their body, because your body is your unconscious mind. Your body is your unconscious mind. So sometimes you might be saying something verbally, but your body might be reacting differently. So, because your body is the unconscious mind, your body is the truthful mind. Yes, you could be lying, right? And you've seen situation where somebody is lying and then they're acting differently. Maybe they're rolling their eyes, they're looking elsewhere, they're telling you something to be true, but the eyes or maybe a part of their body is reacting differently. That's why body important is absolutely crucially important. And when you know how to use it, you use it for great communication. You use it to really make a point of what you're saying. So I'm going to share with you in this episode maybe about three aspects of body language that you need to return, that you possibly can use, incorporate in your life, in your communication, to become an effective public speaker using your body language correctly. So the first one is simply, let's just start with the facial expression. You see, your facial expression is a part of body that states your emotional moment. It's your emotional cue. Your facial expression is your emotional cue. So when you are speaking about something that is uh, sad, for instance, of course your face has to exude sadness to it. If you're speaking about something that is exciting, so your face has to show it. So your facial expression is your emotion connection with what you are broadcasting to the person you are talking to or to the audience. So when you're saying something that is of any emotional connotation, your face has to show that same connotation. So that's why facial expression is crucial when it comes to public speaking. Now, you cannot be saying something that is sad, right? And then you are all smiles. No, it wouldn't work like that. You wouldn't make that impact. People would be so much confused. That's why it is important to be aware and know how to use your facial in the way that you can actually convey a message that you want to convey. So your facial expression is absolutely important when it comes to your body language. Show exactly what you mean on your face. So that's the first aspect of body language. The second one is eye contact. Yes, eye contact is crucial. You see, eye contact is something that I have struggled with for a long time, and for good reason. Culturally, things are different. So I grew up in the culture. I grew up in Africa. I grew up in the small village called Tonga in Africa. And growing up in my culture, and I've realized in many parts of Africa and some part of Asia too. So you cannot look at a person who's older than you or an authority figure in their eyes when you speak to them. You cannot look at them straight in the eye. That would be a sign of disrespect. That would be a sign of disrespect. If you are talking to somebody who's older than you and you look at them straight in the eye. So it is something that culturally is not accepted. And just imagine you grew up like that, decades, 10, 20, 30 years of your life, having that natural habit of not looking at anybody who's in the higher position, who's older than you in the eyes. And then you change it. When I came to the US, for instance, it's a different ballgame here. It's a contrary to the way that I grew up when it comes to eye contact. I mean, in US, for instance, I'm saying this maybe Western culture in general. If you are speaking to somebody and you're not looking at them in the eye, it would be as though you were hiding something. It would also be like a disrespect, a sign of disrespect, that you're not respecting them enough to look at them when you're making that point. You see, those are two opposite culture. So if you grew up in the one culture that has a way of doing things and you do that thing, you've done that thing for years and decades of your life. So it's embedded in your psyche. That's how you function. It becomes natural. You don't really have to think about it. Anytime that you have to speak in front of somebody who's older than you or maybe an authority figure, naturally you look away. You kind of shift your gaze down to the ground or on the side. So, and then in the Western society, it is a sign of disrespect. People would not trust you because they're thinking that you are hiding something. So, eye contact, it's something that as a public speaker, as a great communicator, we need to practice. Even if you grew up in that culture, yes, you got to, it's not, again, a fixed condition. It's not something that cannot be changed. Everything is kind of changeable when it comes to our condition, the state, the practice that we've done so many times. We can override that and start doing different practices. So when it comes to public speaking, it's important to stop practicing giving a great warm eye contact. Whether you're speaking to one or thousand, to know how to cast a very warm eye contact to each and every person that you are speaking to. I'm not saying that if you are in front of an audience of, let's just say, hundreds of thousands, you got to look at every single person in the room. No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is simply that when you start to speak to a great number of people, you've got to practice, you've got to learn how to be able to look at certain people in the audience. And when you look at them, give them a warm, maybe a couple of seconds, good eye contact. And the reason for that is simply that I've felt that so many times when sitting in the audience and somebody's on stage, and then there are many other people, of course, in the audience, right? So when the person is actually speaking, they would maybe look my way. And when they look my way, our eyes meet. And when that happens, I feel so warm. I feel so called into that conversation. It is as though I am part of that conversation, or he or she is talking directly to me. So I feel engaged in that conversation. So that's the effect of good eye contact, especially when you are speaking in front of the group. So eye contact is actually crucial. It's a form of engagement, a form of bringing people into the conversation, because think about it, nowadays, our attention span is so short now that if you are a speaker, you're not so much engaging. People will stop to do some other things. People will start to check their phones. They will start to talk to their neighbor. They will start to, just not be there. So while you are speaking, there are different techniques to engage people. Of course, eye contact being one of those techniques that really would get people glued to their place and glued to you. Because once you give them eye contact, even just one time, I gotta guarantee you, even if you just look at them just one time, the entire time that you are there, it could be 30 minutes, it could be 1 hour. If you look at them even just one time, I guarantee you that even if they have thought about looking at their phone, they would no longer look at their phone. They would be glued to you. They would want you to look their way again. That's how they engage to you. Because the idea of communication is simply you want engagement. You want people to understand and listen to what you are sharing so that maybe they can do something about it. They can change their life. They can go and change things with that information. So that's the role of public speaking and communication. Otherwise, why even standing there? If you don't want to engage the audience, you don't want to engage people, why even standing there? It's because you want them to see what you want them to see or to do what you want them to do. And you do that through public speaking, the means of communication. So that's why eye contact is absolutely crucially important. And I was saying that anything like that, something like that doesn't come natural. Again, for those who grew up like me, who grew up not doing that, you have to practice it It's about practicing. It's about doing it so many times. And then you practice. I was telling to my student just yesterday, because I run the boot camp on communication from time to time. I was telling my student just yesterday that you don't have to wait to be in front of people to always practice a particular technique of public speaking. And even when it comes to eye contact, you don't have to be right in front of an audience or maybe in front of somebody to be able to practice that. You can practice that at home, at the comfort of your home, by yourself. You just visualize people standing there or sitting there. You just look at them and talk to them there, look at them and talk to them there, look at them and talk to them there. When you do that, even on your own, just visualizing people being there, when you do that so many times, again, public speaking is simply practice, practice, practice. So when you do that so many times, again, your body would know it better than your mind. When you are in front of an audience, you don't even have to think about that. You have to give people eye contact. It would just come naturally. You would know that, no, you need to connect with John there. You need to connect with Jane there. You need to connect with Sarah there. You need to connect with Albert there. So it just comes natural. So this is not only even for those who grew up differently, but even those who grew up in a Western culture, because I still see a lot of people who do not have that naturalness of giving a good eye contact to a lot of people when they speak on stage. You know, some people feel abandoned when you don't look at their way. They feel abandoned. They feel as though they're not part of the conversation. That's why it's good to practice that when you are in the audience. You don't have to go to your default mode of maybe speaking only to a couple of people in front of you, because I've seen that a lot of the time. People would just stand in front of uh, the audience, and they would just talk to a few people in front of the group, so, and then a lot of people in the back, on the left, on the right, they are left on their own. They are abandoned. By giving the eye contact, you are bringing everybody into your conversation. So that's a second technique of your body language that's really crucial. Now, the third one, it's I say I was going to share only three today. There are a lot of little different ones, but I'm going to share just three in this podcast. And I use those three effectively. Definitely, you become a magnetic and captivating communicator or public speaker. So the third technique is simply your hand gestures. Yeah, your hand gesture is crucially important too, because it really the emphasis of what you sang. For instance, if you are actually sharing an information about something that was large, right? So then you could say that it was large, that would still do something. But if you say by adding the gesture of how large it was, no, that takes a different dimension. So that's a role of body language, to give a gravitas, to give that grandeur to the things, or like that description, that the emphasis of what you are sharing. That's the thing of a hand gesture. Or if you're describing something that's small, by showing your hand to see how small that was or that is. You see, it shows people not only your word, but your gesture. It makes it stick. That's what you make people so engaged in what you are sharing. So your hand gesture is absolutely crucially important when it comes to communication. And one thing that you need to know about hand gesture is it doesn't have to be just like you doing some kind of kung fu. It got to come from left and right. You're just gonna be throwing it out there just anyhow. No, your hand gesture has to be meaningful. So when it comes out, it's for a purpose. It has to do something. It's for something. It's not just there because because you have to throw it out there, you have to throw it out there. No. When it comes out purposefully, that's when your message has that great emphasis. That's when you bring it out for a purpose, for a reason. Your message takes on a different dimension. So yeah, we can always practice using our hand gestures purposefully. Everything is practice. You see, there is nothing about communication that is that is, you just gotta wing it. There is no winging when it comes to really become a great communicator or a confident and captivating public speaker. There is nothing to wing about. You don't have to wing it. You don't wing it. You have to practice it. That's why even when it comes to gesturing, you have to learn how to do it. And again, you don't have to be in front of people. You don't have to be in front of an audience in order to practice that. You can do it at the comfort of your home. You just start talking about a particular subject and then you see how you're using your hands. So at that moment, you are fully conscious about how you use your hands. It comes from your conscious mind. You know that I want to use my hand at this particular moment. I want to say something. I want to emphasize this point by using my hand. But when you do that long enough, when you repeat that so many times, now your body knows it better than your mind. When you are in front of an audience, you don't even have to think about, I'm going to use my hand, my right or left hand or whatever. I'm going to try to use it to describe. No, you don't even think about it at that moment. Everything just comes naturally. Everything just comes naturally, right? Everything just comes naturally because you practice it so many times that your body knows it better than your mind. That's why practice, there is no shortcut to a great public speaking. There is no shortcut at all. There is no band-aid. There is no uh, quick whatever. No, you have to practice long enough. I cannot tell you how many times. Well, I don't really want to go there because I mean, the idea of practice. Just to wrap it up with all different techniques, and I share with you uh, the facial expression has the emotional aspect of body language. Your face really it shows your emotion. It's the emotional aspect of your body language. The eye contact, how it is important to engage people, bringing into conversation by casting a good warm eye contact to that person, and then lastly how to use your hands purposefully. So you see, again, in the course of this, I think this podcast, and when it comes to some of the techniques or public speaking, I would always share that repetition is key. Speakers speak, speakers speak. You just have to speak. You just have to practice long enough. And there's a theory of 10,000 hours by Anderson Erickson. Yeah, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly, Anderson Erickson, and that theory was popularized by Malcolm Gladwell in his book, the Outliers, the Stories of Success. So that theory of 10,000 hours simply stipulates that if you do something 10,000 times, you would become automatically an expert. You see, so just imagine as a public speaker or somebody who wants to become good at one thing, at this particular thing, public speaking or any other thing, you have to put 10,000 hours in it. So when I'm emphasizing about practicing is because you may not attend 10,000 hours, right? But the underlying principle of that theory is simply this: the more you do it, the better you become. The more you do it, the better you become. So if you practice those techniques of great body language, and think about it, your body amount for 55% of your communication. So that's a big chunk of your communication. There are only three parts: your content, your voice, and your body language. Your content is 7, your voice is 38, and your body language is 55, based on the study that I mentioned conducted in 1960s. So if you just think about your body language, to use just those three aspects, that is so some little different aspect that you can add to it, like body movement and stuff like that, which we're not going to go through it now. But if you use only those three aspects and you master them, you use them purposefully, you're aware of them, you practice them long enough to make it natural, definitely you will be a commanding speaker. You'll be an effective communicator. So without practice, you will not get there. But you have to practice long enough so that your body knows it better than your mind. And again, thank you for tuning in to Speaking with Elvis podcast. Until then, I will see you in another episode. Thank you.